Please be seated. Some of you have been here a few times since last night. It's good to see you again. So let me not do anything repetitive. We have been wrapped in poetry over the last 12 or 14 hours or so here at St. Luke's, and I'm very grateful for it. So I'm just going to be really direct. Let me not try to be poetic and following a poet. Falling and rising is like little resurrections, and falling and rising is what these readings are about. So Joseph, you remember the story, I'm sure, is sold by his siblings. Remember that? His brothers throw him in a pit and had planned to leave him to die and sell him because some traders come by. This is Genesis. This is the Bible telling us from the very beginning that we have been broken to the fundamentals in our families. This is envy and jealousy on the part of his brothers because Joseph is absolutely the favorite. And he's an unusual character. Remember, he wears the fancy dress, he gets the robe, and I think all the descriptors of that term in Hebrew are feminine. Joseph is complicated, to say the least, and his father adores him. And his older brothers basically sacrifice him for it. They get rid of him. They eliminate him. The reading we have today is them realizing that he's still alive. And not just is he alive, he has gone off to Egypt. In Genesis, Egypt is the safe place where people are held waiting. Remember, Jesus later goes to Egypt to wait. It becomes a place of safety, about to become a place of enslavement. Interesting how those two things can sometimes tie together in the text. They are in Egypt because they are desperate. The strong brothers that had cast away their younger brother are now hungry. They have come to beg for some food and some way to get some support for their family, for this famine that seems to not be ending. And their brother sees them, Joseph. You can't fall further than in a pit while your brothers wait for you to die, thrown in by your brothers. Who is on your side in the world if your brothers think that's an okay thing to do to you? And he's come back and risen to great glory in Egypt, but remember, he is alone. Hear him ask if his father who loved him was still alive. Did he cry every night? Did he wonder? You can feel the broken boy in the story who cannot wait to see the rest of his family. That's our first reading. He's fallen as low as a person can go in many ways, and risen as high as a person can rise in many ways in this little story, and is about to be reconciled to his family, like a little resurrection at the very, very beginning. And the rest of the readings kind of play with that idea of what is of us, what is human, and what is of God. And the terms can be confusing because the way most of it, I know the way I was, like my brain did it, is if I read the letters of Paul, then everything I do is wrong. But if God is with me, if the church tells me how to do it, maybe I can do it right. And what I've been told is actually it's a little bit more complicated than that. Actually, what Paul describes often as the flesh, what he's talking about is the ways of the world, the way the world works. It's an interesting twist that there is goodness in us and in our flesh, but we are so compromised in our living, in the world around us, that without an intervention, we actually become really destructive, and we think it is us. So we are returned to our humanity in Jesus. This return to love is a return to ourselves. So here's an illustration. Those of you that do the social media will already know this one, but I have been intrigued that this story about this child named Shay keeps going around on Facebook. Has anyone heard it? Somebody must. You have. You guys are pretending you're not on Facebook as much as I am. I don't mean to be either, but I find myself there. I'm embarrassed. I don't do it on Wednesdays because we're not doing Wednesdays. But it keeps coming up from people I really respect. And it's all over the place. I don't know if it's true. I did a little bit of research. I couldn't figure it out if it's actually a real story, but people share it. So the fact that people keep sharing it means it's saying something that they hope for us, I think. So the story is, there's this kid named Shay. The story is told by his father at a school for kids that have special needs. And his child is a student at the school. And he stands up to tell a story of his son. who is severely disabled, physically and mentally. So not able to do school, not able to communicate very much, not able to move easily in their body. So he's walking with his son, and they pass a park, and kids are playing baseball. And he wants to play. Boys are playing, and they have uniforms, so it's somewhat structured play of baseball. You can all all of us, right, clench up as soon as you get to that line, right? And he says, this child says, Shay says, I want to play. And the father says he is mortified because that's probably not going to happen. But he goes over and asks the pitcher on one of the team, asks one of the boys, my son would like to play, can he play? And he says, the story says, that the pitcher kind of sizes up the situation. They are losing, so whatever. Of course he can come play. We have no hope of winning. So pretty good first step. So he gets in and they give him a little jersey and he's pretty psyched. And if he had just sat there and done nothing else, that would have been a pretty great day in Shay's life. But they decide that they'll actually put him on the roster. He's going to go up to bat, and he'll do it in the 9th inning when it's all over. I know, we're all clenching up again, right? And of course, they start to score some points as they get towards that 9th inning. And they actually kind of get in range of when they could actually win this game. And the dad says, as he's telling the story, well, it would be fine if they don't let him bat because he doesn't even know which end to hold. He wouldn't know how to do that. It would be fine if they said, actually, circumstances have changed and we can't do this. But they don't do that. So their kids on the bases, they could win this game. And they let Shay come up and bat, is the way the story is told. And he literally doesn't know how to hold the thing. And the pitcher from the other team, and these are little boys, walks up a little closer to him and just lobs a really soft ball. And he swings and he misses it. So the pitcher from the other team gets a little closer, the dad says, and lobs a really soft ball, which this child does connect with, hits the bat, and it just rolls right back to the guy who's pitched it to him. And so he picks it up as Shay is pointed towards first base and starts to run in that direction. A child who's probably never run before is trying to get to first base. And this kid just chucks the ball as far as he can, way over everybody's head, so that people have to go running after it so that he can get to first base. These are little boys, according to this story and this dad. And then they turn him to second base. And there's just someone out there, they've not talked about this, who's got the ball now, and could just throw it, it would work just fine, but instead lobs it as far as he can in the wrong direction. Someone else grabs it. And they have to turn him to third base, and when they're turning him to third base, and I can see you crying because I did the same thing the first 5 times I read it, turn him to third base, literally the shortstop on the other team has to run with him because he doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't understand what's happening. And at this point, all the kids are shouting his name, and the parents, and they get him to third base, and the ball again flies over the third baseman and goes somewhere else, but is still on the field. And then they turn him to home, and he runs and puts his foot on it, and everybody cheers. Yeah, I can see, it's exactly what I did when I heard it, and I'm not telling it very well. It reads beautifully because it's a dad telling a story, and I believe it just because it reads so beautifully. But I've been thinking about, one, why is everybody sharing it, and why does it make me cry every time? So one, I think it's because we are told little boys aren't like that. I'm just going to say, I just want to say it really, that boys aren't like that. That they couldn't actually put aside needing to win a game for someone else. They wouldn't see one another and see need and support one another. That we are so desperate to hear a story of kindness that it feels like it's out of the Bible. To just hear that a bunch of kids see one that is in a lot of need that they could support and just choose to do it. And they do it. So of course, the dad says, as he's telling the story, that was the story this child told for a while until he died, which he was going to do as a child. That was what was going to happen in his life. That is what happened. I think that story illustrates the readings we just heard, especially that second one. That's actually how we are wired, and I believe it, how we are made to see one another, to support one another, to want to encourage one another. We are made like that. And Christ calls us back to it. What that gospel reading is telling us is you decide who you want to be. And maybe if you decide to be a kid who decides to step up a few steps and throw that ball really gently, your friend over there will want to be part of that too, and your other friend, and your other friend, and a shortstop will lose his mind and run alongside the kid from the other team who just showed up so he can be happy having made it to that third base, to participate in his joy. We have plenty of people in the world around us telling us we are here to judge and to be beaten down and to be defeated. To see our brothers coming up over into the land of Egypt and remember only our despair, that vengeance is all we have in us. But sometimes, the time is that we are the ones who are struck down, who were sent down into Egypt, who just want to participate and don't know how. Sometimes we are the ones slapped in the face, lying on the ground, deciding what to do next. And our text tells us sometimes we can stand right back up and decide who we want to be. Sometimes we are waiting. The time will come. We are being prepared. Sometimes only Christ will know who you are, and you will know who you are, where you can hold out a hand to one who requires it, even in these times, where you can run alongside or throw that ball so far, even though you don't know if the next one will. We decide who we will be. We are made for it. But the ways of this world will tell you that everything I have just said is foolishness. Everything you read in your Bible today is foolishness. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. It is not you. It is not who you are that is broken in this world. You decide who you will be. But know that Christ is with us, alongside us, pointing us in the right direction, flinging balls around, getting really close when you really need that hit, giving you the shirt, walking over to ask for permission. Maybe you could be included. All of it is us. Every part of the story, even in this time, you and I decide, and it is like a little resurrection every time that you are knocked down. Every time the worst is assumed of you. Every time you have a choice to stand up again. So I don't know if that story's true. I don't know. I'm very intrigued that we need to hear it so desperately. I will probably read it again today, and I'll cry again. It's so beautiful. The way the Father begins it is with this, and I don't know if I believe this or not. The way he begins the story is he believes that everything is made for a purpose, that nature doesn't fail. So why was my son born sick in this way? And he said, to illustrate to himself and to others, love possible in this world. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if the story is true, but I sure do need that story. And I have been reminded in a way that I did not know I needed to hear. I have been reminded in this time of this, remember the line that we are cast down and we are buried. They thought we were dead, but we are seeds. Friends, we are seeds. And you might feel that you are in Egypt right now, or you might feel that this seed is right on schedule in the spring. But we are seeds. And we will rise again.